The mystery of the red ribbon boxes. Tom Wilson woke to the bright light filtering through the curtains. The small village of Winter's Hollow lay blanketed in snow, as though tucked under a warm quilt. Outside, a deep silence prevailed, broken only by the occasional crackle of frozen branches. His house stood on the outskirts of the village, near the forest. Tom yawned and rubbed his eyes. Though he was only 34, he felt much older. The past few months had drained him, losing his job, debts piling up higher every day. His only solace was his 7-year-old daughter, Ellie, who was still sound asleep in the room next door. Pulling on a warm sweater, he stepped out onto the porch. The snow crunched under his boots. The air was sharp and fresh, but his attention was quickly drawn to something unusual. Right at his doorstep was a small box, wrapped in brown paper and tied with a red ribbon. What the... Tom frowned, glancing around. No one was there. The neighbors were far off and there were no tracks in the snow. He picked up the box and felt its lightness. Unwrapping the paper revealed a handmade wooden bear. The carving was rough, but it had a certain charm. Who could have left this? He muttered, a small smile forming despite himself. He brought the bear inside and placed it on the shelf. Ellie would love it. The next day, similar boxes appeared on every doorstep in the village. Tom saw Mrs. Carter, an elderly neighbor, picking up an identical box. She looked around suspiciously, furrowing her brow, but took it inside nonetheless. Ellie was delighted with her gift. "Daddy, it's the Christmas spirit leaving these for us," she exclaimed with a wide grin. "Maybe, sweetheart," Tom chuckled. "Or maybe someone just wants to spread a little cheer." But as the days passed, the gifts grew stranger. On the third day, Tom found a broken doll's arm on his porch. The fingers were charred, the joints blackened like coal. Ellie wasn't smiling anymore. She simply asked, "Why's the doll broken, Daddy?" "I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe someone's idea of a joke," Tom replied, doing his best to mask his unease. On the fourth day, another box with a red ribbon appeared, but it was empty, utterly empty, a void that seemed to stare back at Tom. By evening, whispers filled the village. People talked about the mysterious gifts, but no one knew who was leaving them. Mr. Hale, the carpenter, spoke out louder than anyone. "This is too strange. We need to get rid of these things," he declared, tossing his box into his fireplace. The next morning, Hale's front door stood wide open. The house was empty. On his doorstep lay another box, but no one dared approach it. "Maybe he went to visit family," Tom offered weakly, though he didn't believe his own words. That night, sleep eluded him. The forest outside his window felt alive. Branches scraped against the glass, and every crunch of snow outside echoed in his mind. Neighbors began to vanish. First the Hale family, then Mrs. Carter. One morning, Tom saw 3 boxes stacked neatly on her porch, all tied with red ribbons. "This can't be happening," he told himself, clenching his fists. "It's just a coincidence." He went to the village store to talk to Michael, the shopkeeper. Michael stood behind the counter, clutching a box. "Did you see this?" Michael asked, his voice trembling. "It was at the back door. I didn't touch it." "Don't," Tom said firmly. "There's something wrong with these things." "What if they're watching us?" Michael whispered, leaning in. "What if someone's hiding in the woods?" The thought lodged itself in Tom's mind like a thorn. He resolved to stay up that night and uncover the truth. That night, Tom sat in the dark by the window, gripping an old baseball bat. At 2:47 a.m., he spotted movement. A shadowy figure glided silently from house to house, seeming to hover just above the ground. A long sack swayed on its back. The twinkling lights of Christmas decorations flickered against its outline. "Who is that?" Tom whispered, tightening his grip on the bat. He slipped out of the house, keeping low behind snowdrifts. The figure approached Mrs. Hart's house, placing a box on her porch before freezing in place. A wave of icy dread washed over Tom. The figure turned its head. It was looking directly at him. "No," Tom breathed. The figure began to move toward him, slowly, deliberately. Its eyes were voids, devoid of anything human. Tom ran. At home, Tom bolted the door and leaned against it, his heart pounding. He glanced at Ellie, sound asleep in her bed. "It's okay, sweetheart," he whispered, though he didn't believe it. The next morning, a new box awaited him. This time, it was inside the house, right by his bed. Hands trembling, he untied the ribbon and opened it. Inside was a small wooden figurine, a perfect replica of himself, right down to the tiny baseball bat in its hands. He turned to check on Ellie and froze. She wasn't asleep. Her eyes were open, unblinking. Her mouth was slightly ajar, frozen in a silent scream. From behind him came a whisper. Those who refuse the gift become the gift. Darkness enveloped him, thick and smothering, like a heavy blanket. Did this story send a chill down your spine? Then you're in the right place. If you love tales that keep you on edge and twist your expectations, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more. Drop a comment below with your theory about who or what was behind the gifts. And remember, sometimes it's best not to open the box.